If there's a topic that tickles my balls more than anything, it's whether having an ego is a good or a bad thing. Because whenever I hear anyone talk about ego, it's always used in the context of, oh, you have such a big ego, calm your ego, humble yourself. And there's obviously a reason for it. It is very icky to hear someone giving themselves the best verbal head in history over something dumb like the fact that they go to the gym or what car they can drive. But this kind of talk makes ego a wildly misunderstood concept because there's such a thing as healthy ego and unhealthy ego. And yet there's only two sides of this topic. It's either you're in the camp of you should have no ego at all because it makes others feel bad, or I'm better than 99% of people my age. So in this episode of Armchair Psychology you never asked for but for some reason decided to click on anyway, I want to put some respect on ego's name and create the distinction between good ego and bad ego so you can stop being a spineless wimp. Or piece of shit. So the human psyche contains multiple parts that help us to think and act in complex ways. The first of which being the id, which was coined by the freak himself, Sigma Freud. The id houses you at your unfiltered self. It's all your impulses, desires, complexes, and is a necessary part of every animal brain, as without the drive to fulfill hunger or hunger, no species would be able to survive or reproduce because there'd be no reason to do anything. However, if you only possess this part of your psyche, you'd fail to realize that chasing women on all fours at night, despite being a very alpha move, is not game, and would in fact land you on multiple watch lists. Or a job at OVO. This is where your conscience comes into play. This is the part of your psyche that will talk you out of tier 3 subbing to Pokemon, or brake checking and smacking the dog shit out of the F-150 driver behind you. Even though it's a great idea, these two components of your psyche are like the devil and angel on your shoulder. One side wants you to focus on your homework and study for the test you have tomorrow, and the other wants to jerk off to cartoon sex immediately! So in order to settle the mental tug of war they create, your ego serves as the conscious organizer of your unconscious mind, by creating a point of reference of which is to emulate in order to satisfy your desires, and chasing that self-image in a socially acceptable way. This self-image usually forms from your childhood around something like a father figure to a young boy, or like Goku to every Mexican. And how your ego measures whether or not you're him is based on the opinions other people have of you, which means your self-esteem is tied to the approval of others. So when anyone says, oh, I'm doing this for me, not for you, that is cope. Because if you weren't concerned with what other people thought of you, you'd only indulge in pleasure. Because what is the purpose of a calorie deficit when I could just eat pizza all day and be 1,000 times happier? For your health? Motherfucker, you eat 1,000 calories a day. Health is not your concern. You do this because you know in the back of your head that eating 4,000 calories at McDonald's, playing Elden Ring all day, and wearing only that one pair of sweatpants you got very evidently ripped around the ass crack doesn't really scream winner in today's world, nor would it score you any pussy. However, you do understand that dieting, posting your glute spread on TikTok, and jerking your half-functioning wiener to the approval of others might get you closer to what you truly want, whether that's a new car, more followers, hoes, because it makes you feel confident that people will ride your dick. And it isn't a bad thing to think this way. Like, I don't know why some people are ashamed to admit that they do things for the approval of others. And I'm not saying to be a just pearly things level pick me. I'm not talking that kind of validation. She's the woman version of this meme, except she's actually serious. But being driven by your inner desires for things like material possessions, status, more attractiveness, it gives you a level of self-confidence and monkey brain motivation that's necessary for success. Because while thinking conscientiously is a good thing, overanalyzing and overthinking everything you try can leave you in a state of thought paralysis, where you second guess every move you make thinking about the outcome. Sometimes you just need the belief and, in some sense, delusion to just go for it, which is the biggest benefit of a strong ego. It makes you hit the gym regardless of how self-conscious you feel about your weight. It makes you take a leap of faith and pursue your passions despite the risk, which are amazing things for your life regardless of intention. So being driven by validation isn't a bad thing. However, it can become a double-edged sword because when you start actually achieving your goals and receiving the validation your ego craves, your level of egotism is tested. A test that, let's be honest, most people fail. Because ego and self-esteem is driven by comparison, we grow up to believe that our worth and importance in the world is down to how you compare with others. And when you see people who are miles ahead of you, you feel like you're failing. This is what can cause body dysmorphia, for example. You could go to the gym for years, build a good amount of muscle and a good looking physique, but still feel small and skinny fat compared to the people on social media. It doesn't matter if that guy you're seeing has pinned his asshole for 10 years straight and is posing in perfect lighting. It still puts to shame your 3-year progress and makes you feel like no matter how hard you try, your physique will never compare to his. And that can actually take away from your self-confidence instead of fuel you to push yourself further. But on the flip side, if your ego feels like other people can't compare to your level of success, it can raise your self-importance and make you feel closer to your ideal self. This causes ego inflation, where you obtain that grandiose level of self-confidence that makes dumbasses think manipulating teenagers into buying a course means you know more than doctors who spent half their life studying medicine, all because you did one Google search on testosterone. And any challenge to this image that you have in your head feels like a personal attack. This puts your ego in a constant fragile state because ego loves to cope, especially when it feels more inclined to live up to its ideals. ideal self. It won't ever acknowledge uncomfortable, anxiety-inducing thoughts or ideas, such as someone calling you out for weird behavior, but will instead protect itself through coping mechanisms like deflection, judgment of others, overcompensation, and like 20 other ones I do not care enough to read about. The problem with this, however, is that ego is meant to balance your impulses and morals, and being controlled by your id drowns out your moral judgment, which blinds you from seeing any other perspective but your own, which is what separates bad ego from good ego, as growth and improvement comes from realizing and correcting your mistakes. So in order to reap the full benefits of a strong ego, you need to maintain your ability to challenge your self-image at all times, because thinking conscientiously is a conscious decision. It's really easy when you feel like you're on top of the people around you to disregard how you should be acting and act how you feel is right and shunt any other perspective but your own, because it's gratifying. It seemingly keeps you in control of your life and avoids all the discomfort of realizing you're actually not that guy. But keeping yourself grounded is just as important as being able to believe in the self-confidence that ego provides, as it stops the uglier aspects of your psyche from affecting your behavior in a negative way. Go watch this video if you want to know why. Because most people aren't bad people. Like, unless you're a psychopath, you're able to tell what's right from wrong when you look at situations objectively. However, what every person on this earth is egocentric, and when you can only see your perspective during an uncomfortable situation, as most people do, it becomes really easy to justify yourself no matter how wrong you are because of the Dunning-Kruger effect, as when there's less information available to you, there's less of a challenge to your level of understanding, meaning you think you're more correct than you actually are. So you need to be consciously challenging your own perspective by recognizing egotistical and egocentrical thoughts as just that. Egotism, not reality, because what you think of yourself is most likely not what you actually are. Everyone's egos are inflated in some way. Everyone secretly believes they're the main character, born with some kind of special talent that others don't have. Well, guess what?
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
So in addition to challenging your self-image, you need to learn to separate your self-esteem from your ego, not in a copy, make a social media post about not caring for the opinions of others way. Because if you took the time out of your day to make a TikTok about how you're focused on yourself and not other people, you're actually telling me that my opinions live rent-free in your head. But more so in a way of not basing your self-importance on what you achieve, what you can do, and how you compare to others, because comparison is in fact the thief of joy, and will downplay anything good you accomplish and make you feel the need to overcompensate to feel ahead of others, thus still in control of your life. And don't get me wrong, being competitive is not a bad thing, because if you weren't competitive, you'd give up at the slightest challenge and never feel any real need to push yourself. But the competitive drive your ego provides needs to be channeled into your work, not directed at others, because that's how you become a boastful prick. Or a hating ass bitch. So be egoistic, chase your desires and goals, focus on you, but don't be threatened by not being perfect. Embrace your flaws as well as the perspectives of others, because being wrong is how you grow as a person. And you can be proud of yourself and the work you put into your life, but that pride shouldn't and doesn't put you above others. Everyone's a human, regardless of whether you have more muscle or more money or more talent in a certain area. So base your self-image around something other than your achievements, and create a stronger connection with your inner world. Flaws and all. Anyways, that's all from me. I hope you've learned something today, and if you didn't, that's your problem. I'm never the problem. Look at my sub count and look at yours. Do you think I'm ever wrong? Maybe I'm not even the problem. Maybe if you weren't so dumb, you'd understand what I'm saying right now. Like, sorry if my videos are too advanced for you to understand. It's not my fault I'm so much smarter and cooler and gooder than you. I'm not being full of myself. I'm just being honest and handsome and correct about everything.